So we all remember the somewhat controversial final twist of Part 3 that JoJo's stand Star Platinum had the same ability as the world to stop time, somewhat foreshadowed by the line, so it's the same type of stand as Star Platinum. Many fans would consider this to be an arse pull, where the hero defeats the villain in an abrupt, new way that could only be explained as the author pulling it out of their ass. Now, this isn't an unfair criticism of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, with the protagonist before, Joseph Joestar, pulling off perhaps the greatest arse pull in manga history by fortunately having his severed arm help cars blast off into space. However, that felt more in tone with the vibe of Part 2 and Joseph Joestar. I think people criticize JoJo's time stop because it kind of went against what Part 3 and the other subsequent parts display, fights being won with creative uses of their stand and a bit of luck. So now, I'm going to ask the question, what if every protagonist in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure had the same type of stand as the main villain? I'm going to try and creatively rewrite the ending of the rest of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure to see how it could possibly work. So yes, this is basically just going to be a stupid fanfiction video from a bloke that has never written fanfiction before. So let's jump right in with Part 4 and Josuke. Now Part 4 is pretty easy, because all we have to do is canonize the long-standing fan theory that Josuke did go back in time, and the stranger that saved Josuke when he was a kid was actually his true self. With the theory being that Josuke was sent back in time by Bites the Dust, the tricky part is coming up with how Josuke can send himself back in time with Crazy Diamond. So I'll just go with the easy idea that at some point in the story that Josuke is also stabbed with a stand arrow and gains the ability to travel back in time. This works well thematically with the parallels of Kira being able to destroy things and Josuke being able to fix them, so Josuke could go back in time to fix Kira's wrongs. This could even line up nicely with Sugimoto Reimi, who actually seems to have been killed around the same time as Josuke got sick, so there could be a plot point where Josuke goes back in time to save Reimi, or at least helps her soul pass peacefully. So yeah, I think this works. Moving on to Part 5, which is a little bit trickier, as there's not much connection between being able to create life and skipping time, so once again we're going to have to use the stand arrow and instead rewrite Gold Experience Requiem. I don't really like this idea because King Crimson is in its base form and GER is obviously a Requiem stand, but it is what it is. Now, some fans who are much smarter than I am have noticed a sort of parallel between King Crimson and GER, with King Crimson's ability being able to skip the cause of something, and GER being able to skip or remove the event of something. Now for this, we can keep the GER reverting to zero ability, and rewrite it so that it includes the ability to remove the cause of an action, not just the effect. I honestly think this would be a great way to improve Diavolo's fate in the manga. Instead of resetting Diavolo's death to zero, which I'm not sure I fully understand, the infinite death loop reasoning could instead be that Giorno is using time skip powers in order to skip Diavolo's death. So, instead of Diavolo dying infinitely, he's just nearly dying infinitely, which is pretty much the same thing. Now, for the impossible one, which is Part 6. Now, of course, Pucci's final stand Made in Heaven is the result of a fusion with the green baby that is made from Dio, and the whole other bunch of stuff that results in Pucci being able to speed up time, making him incredibly fast. But I did manage to come up with an idea after considering the nature of stands and the family bonds that stand rules follow. If you remember, in Part 3, Jotaro, Holly, and Joseph obtain their stands due to the family connection between them and Dio, who is using Jonathan's body as a host. And because Pucci obtains the stand by fusing with Dio, is it such a stretch that Jolene and Jotaro could be unaffected by the time speed up due to being Joestars? Yes, but it would make a nice throwback to Part 3. Maybe Jolene could enter the time speed up and move as fast as Pucci, similar to how Jotaro was able to enter Dio's stop time. It would give Jolene a better fighting chance against Pucci, and allow Jolene to be the one to take down Pucci on an equal playing field. It could make for a much happier ending, but the bittersweet ending of Part 6 is very iconic, and it'd be a shame to change it. So yeah, that's all I've got. Now Part 7 is much easier in this regard, as Johnny Joestar's stand Tusk Act 4 and Funny Valentine's stand D4C have abilities related to infinity, with Johnny having the power of infinite rotation and Valentine being able to access an infinite number of alternate dimensions. So it's quite easy to rewrite Tusk Act 4 to an ability resembling D4C. In fact, you could even argue they do share the same ability, as Act 4 is capable of breaking through interdimensional barriers. So all we have to do is chuck in a throwaway line by Johnny saying, "So it's the same type of stand as Tusk," or maybe the other way round after unlocking Act 4. Then we could have a short little fight scene of Johnny using Act 4 to chase Valentine through the dimensions before landing the final blow on Valentine. Easy peasy. Last up, we have Part 8, with Josuke using Soft and Wet, with the ability to create bubbles that can steal the properties from people or objects, although that ability seems to be forgotten in the second half of JoJolion. And Toru with the Wonder of View, who has the ability to cause calamity, in which bad things happen to those that pursue him. Now this is another difficult one, as there isn't much connection between the two, so I've decided to go with Josuke's long lost ability to steal things with his bubbles, and say that Josuke could use his bubbles to steal the effects of calamity. Josuke would use his evolved form, Go Beyond, to be able to access things that aren't really there, like calamity, and encase it in a bubble to reflect it back to Toru, causing him to ultimately be defeated by his own ability. I actually think this would be much more interesting than what we actually got, but I'll let you be the judge. So that's my lazy, uncreative fanfiction. If you think you could do better, and let's face it, you probably could, leave your own ideas in the comments and like if you enjoyed. Cheers.